Good afternoon. Do you have a pile of books waiting to be read? Is the stack behind your desk your priority summer reading list? Too many options and unsure where to start? Welcome to JLG's webcast series, 12 New Books to Read This Summer. I'm Joel Franklin. Today's webcast will either help you prioritize your TBR pile or cause it to grow. Kayleigh Hanlon, one of our newest book talkers, joins Deborah today. From Blue Gods to Noodleheads to The Magically Minded, these books are sure to keep your readers engaged this summer. Please join the conversation on Twitter as well. You can tweet us at JR Library Guild and use the hashtag JLGWebcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can send those in at any time via the red Q&A box. So Deb, I have to ask, what is a noodlehead?
I'm so glad you asked that, Joel. It's our first book, and one of my absolute favorites. It is laugh out loud hilarious. So those of you who work with elementary kids, you probably recognize the artist, Ted Arnold, is joining Martha Hamilton and Mitch Weiss, who are storytellers. They work together and tell stories, and if I were you, I would find a way to hear those two because I imagine they are amazing. But I'm reading this book, and it is the story of two hollow-headed noodles, Mac and Mac. They literally are, Kayleigh.
It's so
Kayleigh's
funny.
laughing at me.
I'm trying hard not to laugh already.
It's hard to say that. They're hollow-headed noodles, and they are literally empty-headed. You know, they're pasta. And they're sure that Mom will bake them a cake if they can just do something to make her happy. So they decide, oh, she needs firewood to bake the cake. So we'll gather firewood. So off they go into the woods to gather the firewood, but not like your normal person would gather firewood.
Nope.
No, they don't. They're not just looking around on the ground. They're looking up in the trees. And they sit on a limb, and they're sawing away. And here comes their cousin, whose name is Meatball. And he says, I can see that if you keep sawing, you will soon fall down and bruise your bottoms. So pause for laughter, because you know when you read this out loud that will happen. You can't see that because you can't see the future. No one can see the future. And you don't know anything about getting firewood. We will see about that. Saw, 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 saw. Crash! Ouch! I bruised my bottom. Me too. Wait a minute. Meatball said this would happen. You know what that means. Meatball can see the future. What? So, it's a short, 3-chapter, easy reader, graphic novel, laugh out loud, based on early Noodlehead tales, which were folk tales that were fool's tales, like maybe you have some Juan Bobos in your library or in your classroom. But they use storyteller resources to create this hilarious, you must read this book. It's so funny that when I was reading it at home, I was laughing and snorting, and my mister just jerked it out of my hand and said, if it's so funny, then I need to just read it myself right now this minute. And so he just took it and read it, and he laughed too. So there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, the next choice is not as laugh out loud funny, but Miss Eldicott's School for the Magically Minded is still a great choice for summer. Little Chantel is a young witch studying both magic and the arts of deportment in Miss Eldicott's school in the city of Lightning Pass. Now, Lightning Pass has this wall that encloses the city so that no one can get in. And there's a ritual that these sorcerers do to keep the walls secure and buttoned up. But one day, all the sorcerers who run the magic schools and the spell shops are suddenly gone, including Miss Eldicott. So now it's up to Chantel and her friends Anna, Bowser, and Franklin to find the sorcerers and save the city. Can they do it? You're going to have to read and find out. This story is really similar to the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series in the sense that this is kind of a book where young children with special talents and abilities one day find themselves without their adult leader. So they kind of have to use their skills to problem solve and save the day. So I really enjoyed this book. It was a great middle school read. And even SLJ Review said, this book features a strong plot and well-developed characters. Readers who enjoyed Blackwood's earlier works will not be disappointed. This clever fantasy is a strong purchase for most middle grade collections.
Awesome.
It is an awesome book.
And speaking of read-alikes, you spoke and we listened. And so we only have 30 minutes to talk about books, and we know that we can do it, and we can do 12 books without passing out from talking so quickly. But on your handout, so if you look in your resource folder, you'll see a handout which recaps the things that we're talking about right now, but there's also 2 books that are similar in some way or another for every title. So be sure that you are looking at those. So, for example, in your case, Kayleigh, A Most Magical Girl, about a girl who discovers that she has magical powers.
Yes, that would be
Speaking of people who discover things about themselves, so when you signed up for this webcast, there was a mention of blue gods. There was. And you remember last year the whole thing about blue books, where blue books made you cry? You guys remember that out there in listening land? Well, this is a blue book. Actually, all the books I picked to talk about today are blue.
They are.
I don't know how that happened, but it did. And you may or may not cry. I didn't cry in Noodleheads, except, well, I did because I was laughing so hard. So crying is personal. So one of the things that Strange the Dreamer does is, first of all, you see it's by Lene Taylor. So those of you who work with young adults, you know her Smoke and Bone series, and so you could just see her name and just say, okay, I have to buy this book because my kids will really, really like it. But she's also using the popular trend in writing of starting with a prologue that is not something that happened first. It's something that happens much, much later in the story. And so when it happens in the story, you go, wait, I know what happened. I just read that sometime, like 400 pages ago. Yeah, 400 pages ago you read that. So here's how it starts. So who could not finish reading it? On the second Sabbath of 12th moon in the city of Weep, a girl fell from the sky. That's the first sentence. I love first sentences. So for those of you who work with kids and you're trying to get them to be better writers, one of the things you could do is have them keep a chart somewhere in a notebook of great first sentences that they love, and then break it down. Why did the author start with this? Is it the problem? Is it the setting? Is it the character? Why did the author start with this? And because so many kids, when they write, they start with once upon a time or the one day. Right, yeah. But then the second sentence, her skin was blue, her blood was red. Ooh. So here comes the blue gods. And then it goes on to whole, we don't know what happened, we don't know why that's there, and then off we go. Well, it turns out it's the story of Laszlo Strange, and Strange is a name given to kids who are orphans. And he's a war orphan. He's got no parents, and he ends up in, everyone will love this, the library. He works in the library. And but you won't like this. Librarians are low on the totem pole.
Very much so.
Very much so. Well, one day while he's there in the library, a stranger comes around, and he's gathering experts of all kinds. And it has always been Laszlo's dream to see Weep, this village, this community that has collapsed, and a tragic event has happened. And so Laszlo talks himself into this journey where his life will never be the same.
No.
And if you want to know what happens, I'm going to do a Kayleigh. You got to read it yourself.
You really do. We'll go back to our younger audience. Mouse and Hippo. This adorable story starts with Mouse and Hippo becoming friends because Hippo has an itch he just has to scratch. And guess what the itch is? It's Mouse painting on his back because Mouse thought he was a rock. It's so cute. As the story develops, they each decide to paint a portrait of the other, and the portraits are hilarious and abstract, but both Hippo and Mouse are so ecstatic about how they are portrayed in the painting. It's just such a cute book. And they do a color-coded dialogue between Mouse and Hippo, so it's great for young readers to kind of visualize. And it's also a great read-aloud book, I think, for if you're looking for something for the summer. Hornbook magazine said, though they see the world differently and are such physical opposites that Hippo can barely fit an eyeball into Mouse's house, their open acceptance of each other's point of views show they share the most important quality needed for meaningful connection. So it's a great value of friendship book. It's just adorable, so pick it up this summer.
Awesome. People who are different can be friends. Nothing but trouble. Another blue book for our middle school group. This is a story of Maggie, and Maggie's dad has been dead for a really long time, and she never even met him. He died before she was even born, but he left behind a notebook where he told tips and tricks and tales of his hacking, and not hacking into the mainframe of a computer, but seriously big pranks, like putting a car on top of a building.
What?
Yeah. Things like that. Well, Maggie she wants to be her dad, like her dad, and she's very smart like him. She's definitely MIT bound, and then all of a sudden here comes this girl named Lena in town who's new, and she's different. She's kind of goth. She doesn't fit in the mold, and she ends up being friends with Maggie, and the two of them decide to do some serious hacking on the last year of this school that's going to be torn down when they're all gone from there. It's a story of girl power. It's a story you could use with STEAM. It's a story about friends being different.
Just like Mouse and Hippo.
Just like Mouse and Hippo, but these girls are a little more similar in size.
Well, for our older readers this summer, we have The One Memory of Flora Banks by Emily Barr. So, Deb, you have to imagine yourself getting up every day and then reading the story of your life because you have no recollection of it. Or what would you feel like to remember yourself as 10 years old, but you wake up and find that you're really 17? So these are the issues that Flora Banks deals with every day. And Flora was 10 years old when doctors discovered that she had a tumor in her brain. So at age 11, they removed it successfully. However, during surgery, some of the parts of the brain that control the memory went with it. So now at age 17, she finds she can't make new memories. She doesn't remember things. She does remember things before the surgery, and obviously is able to do day-to-day things like brush her teeth and make tea and stuff like that. But
things that she could do when she was 10.
Right, things she could do when she was 10. But she has not been able to make no new memories after that, except for when she is kissed by Drake, who happens to be her best and only friend Paige's now ex-boyfriend.
Boo.
Drama alert. So I really like that the author took the time to write this from Flora's perspective and experience. So when she has to relearn things 7 or 8 different times, the reader's learning those things along with her. And when she all of a sudden, the story starts to not make sense because Flora's missing a piece of what's going on because she can't remember it or she wasn't told it, the reader finds themselves kind of confused and trying to piece together the information, which is what makes this book such a great mystery high book. This reminded me a lot of some of the popular movies that have came out over the years about memory issues like Memento and 50 First Dates. So if you have older kids that watch those movies, this would be a great book to give them over the summer. Like those characters in the movie, Flora is writing lots of sticky notes. She keeps a diary. She writes stuff all over her arms and her legs and her body to remember things. She has the luxury, unlike those movies, with a cell phone, though, so she takes pictures of a lot of things and tries to keep a memory log so she can figure out what's going on. This story is really a great mixture of drama, adventure, and mystery. And honestly, Deb, I have to tell you, I stayed up late all night reading this because I just needed to finish it. It was so good.
I was the same way. I was the same way.
So I had to finish it. So if you want something like that, this is definitely a great choice to pick up. Deb, does the next book happen to be something that you couldn't put down either?
Now I'm going to choke. Yes, absolutely. So, excuse me for choking. But yes, because, ta-da, here's the book. Bet you are wondering what I was all choked up about. Another blue book, but you might cry in one place. but not
a whole tissue book.
Yes, not a tissue book. It was definitely not a tissue book.
Yeah.
It's another mystery, but mystery for elementary, for older elementary kids, and it is, book 2 of the Book Scavenger series, which takes place in San Francisco, and it's all about a community that hides books with codes, which are very hard.
They are hard.
I can't do them.
I can't either.
Yeah, I just clap when they get them right. But in our story, we're kind of back to another mystery, and we have Emily and James trying to solve a new mystery. But this one is a little bit different than the usual way that people are trying to hide a book and help the other members of this club, Book Scavenger Club, find it, because they're hiding the same book. And wherever the book has been hidden, there's been a fire. And when the fire happens in the worst place of all, a bookstore. Oh, I know it's bad. That's the part where you could get, it's sad. So there's something, just like in the last book, there's a bad guy out there. We don't know who the bad guy is. SLJ says that readers who love the first version, the first volume, will find this follow-up even more satisfying. Purchase extra copies where there are fans. So there you go. Oh, and we hadn't talked about the live binder. So in the live binder, Kayleigh and I are, as we read these books, we're looking for resources to help you
use your books.
And so one of the things I learned when I was doing my homework, or my book report, as my mother would say, is people are actually doing this for real.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, so you can make up your clue, you can register your book, you can hide it somewhere, somebody can find it. So yeah, so be sure you check out the live binder for those resources.
Oh, Mastermind series. Oh, love this series. So Payback is book 3 of this series by Gordon Corman. And so if you don't know anything about this series, Tori, Amber, Malik, and Eli are back to finish off the Mastermind series. Like I said, if you've read book 1 and 2, you may know that the kids grew up in a fake town called Serenity, New Mexico, where there is no violence. And the children eventually learn that they're part of a Project Osiris, a science experiment to clone criminal masterminds and raise the children in a nonviolent environment to see if nature or nurture prevails. It's just such a great storyline. I love it so much. As with all the other books in the story, alternates between the 4 children's perspectives, and it contains a fast-paced storyline and definitely page-turning scenes. So I'm going to actually read you a little bit of Eli's section.
Yay.
Nice bracelet, gold-studded with glittering stones. No price tag, I observe. Those are diamonds, Eli, Tori tells me. Diamonds are expensive. Besides, check out how they placed it in the display case. You can tell it's the star of the show. I wonder what it's worth. I peer closer, my nose touching the hot glass of the jewelry store window. I'm not worried about attracting attention. The store is closed and there's hardly anybody around. It's a broiling afternoon in Amarillo, Texas, the kind where sensible people stay inside, the air conditioning. Our long bus ride north from Lubbock didn't buy us cooler weather. I get what Tori's saying. It's like all the other pieces are in orbit around that one bracelet. I'm not surprised she noticed. She has a great eye for detail that makes her the best artist in our hometown, Serenity, New Mexico. I'm also not surprised that she zeroed in on the item in the whole shop that would be the most valuable to someone who steals it. That comes from a part of Tori neither of us want to think about. To be honest, it all looks pretty expensive to me. Rings, necklace, earrings, gold, platinum, gemstones. Not that we ever learned much about money in Serenity. Our parents took care of that, and they always seemed to have plenty. That was before we found out the whole town was fake. And the fakest thing about it was our parents. The creepy truth, they're scientists who've been studying us since the day we were born. Doesn't that make you want to read that book?
It does make me want to read that book.
The whole series.
And plus it's Gordon Corman.
Right.
You know, I mean, the man is a rock star.
He is.
He is. And one of the things I love about him is you could put his stuff in elementary or middle school or even high school because it's so high interest. And you don't have to worry about
crossing that age boundary. With sensitive
age
material.
appropriateness.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I said to him even just recently, I saw him at a dinner, and I said, don't you ever just want to use a 4-letter word? And he said, I won't tell you what he said. He said sometimes. but he won't. So you can rely that you'll be safe in the hands of Gordon Corman, but you will probably have to read the book all in one.
All 3 books. I mean,
yeah,
I would have loved to read them all together.
Yeah.
I kind of had to wait.
You
they
can
came
now.
out.
If you are just starting, you can read them all, 1, 2, 3 in a row. You can. All right. Another one of my favorite people in the whole world is Jeff Strand. Did I tell you about the first time? So his first book was Bad Day for Voodoo. And Susan Marston, our beloved editorial director, told me, she said, now don't read that book in public. And I went,
why?
What? Why? And she said, well, because you will laugh so hard it'll be embarrassing. And so I thought, well, I've been warned. I've got this. So I'm at a fine dining restaurant in Dallas, and I'm reading the book. And I am not only laughing, I'm yelling, I'm smacking the man who's sitting at the table next to me. Get this! Listen to this, and I'm reading to this poor man. And so then I'm at a conference, and I'm standing at the Sourcebooks booth, and I'm telling that team, about my experience with his book. And I said, I love him. I love everything he writes. And then I went, he's standing right behind me, isn't he?
Was he?
He was.
Aww.
He absolutely was. So I'm always delighted to see a Jeff Strand book. But this one this one's a little different, I think, for Jeff. For the stuff that he's published that I've seen so far. Stranger things have happened. You can't always believe what you see, it says on the cover. But this is a story about Marcus, and Marcus is the great-grandson of the famous Zachary the Stupendous, and his grandfather was a great magician. And so at the beginning of the story, Marcus has an unexpected launch into magic. He likes magic, and he's good at card tricks, and he wants to be like his grandfather. They're really, really tight. But he's pretty shy. But his grandfather pretty much pushes him to the limelight. Well, at the same time, one of his grandfather's competitors, Bernard, shows up at this event and pretty much challenges him to
a
bet.
Duel?
Like a magical duel kind of, yeah, a bet. I bet your grandson can't do squat.
Ooh.
And so they put this big wager out, and so he and his great-grandpa are going to figure out this wonderful magical trick in 6 weeks, and Mark is going to practice, and he's done one of those, his grandfather down, and then all of a sudden, Grandpa dies. It's Jeff Strand. It's going to happen, And so poor Marcus is not only left to figure it out by himself. When he goes to his grandfather's house to clean out and maybe get some ideas about what he ought to do, there's another magician there who is nuts with a capital N, crazy man. And he's going to kill Marcus because Marcus knows where this secret to all magic is that his grandfather left behind. Well, then this man takes the bet and turns it 12 other shades. And so Marcus is literally going to be dueling magic for his life. And it gets shorter and shorter. And so he decides, I'm going to disappear a shark in a tank. Well, where is a middle school boy going to find a shark that he can put in a tank? And where's he going to find a tank?
That big, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
so it's
shark,
just,
but...
it is laugh out loud hilarious. And I am just delighted to share with you a laugh out loud hilarious book for our young adults, because so many of the books are grim, especially this spring. And so it is wonderful to finish today's event with a book that will make you laugh.
Da-da-da-da! Super Narwhal and Jelly Jolts. I figured I had to have that, announcement. Announcer voice. So this is the second book of a Narwhal and Jelly book series. You will follow along as Narwhal and Jelly discover their superhero outfits, their secret identities, and of course what it means to truly be a superhero. I loved this adorable little elementary graphic novel, and the colorful artwork and the humor is for both children and adults alike. Just like Noodlehead, it's a laugh-out-loud hilarious book that you will love to read to your little ones or give to your elementary kids to read for themselves and start kind of getting a feel for graphic novels, because maybe they didn't experience that yet.
And graphic novels are awesome.
They are.
So for our middle school, Sally, plah,
Plah.
as in blah, she said sadly to me.
Oh.
Yeah, blah, blah, and she had another word that it rhymes with, but that's how you say it. But Sally's book, The Someday Birds, you must have this. If you loved Okay for Now by Gary Schmidt, about the boy who just became fascinated with Audubon and his birds, you absolutely want to read The Someday Birds yourself. This is a story of a family. Charlie's family is pretty ordinary, but his father is a war journalist, and he has an injury. And in Afghanistan, when he comes home, he's having medical treatment. He gets it to Virginia. They're living with their grandma. The grandma goes to the hospital to be with Charlie's dad, and so they and their new nanny, who's different, yes, different in some really cool ways, though. Ludmilla is her name, and she takes the kids in in her car for a while, and they make this amazing road trip. This is the Year of the Road Trip book, and this one is brilliant. And so along the way, Charlie is finding these birds that he and his father had hoped to find someday.
It's a heartwarming story.
It is.
Definitely is blue, so it's a little bit of a tissue book.
Yeah, and there's a book trailer, and there's also a little, the kid who plays Charlie in the book trailer also reads first chapter.
Oh.
So you could share that with your readers or your patrons. And last but not least.
When Dimple Met Rishi. This is a heartwarming, again, laugh out loud, artsy, nerdy love story about two high school teens who meet at a summer camp. But this isn't any ordinary summer camp. InsomniaCon is San Francisco's 6-week camp for high school students who want to learn how to code their own app, and it has some big prizes for the winners. So Dimple is all about coding. It is her passion. And when her traditional and strict parents say yes to this camp, she's shocked and overwhelmed. But when she gets there, she finds out there may have been a hidden agenda as to why they said yes. So I'm going to read you a small passage. There was a sort of scuffling sound nearby, and Dimple opened her eyes, startled. An Indian boy about her age was gazing down at her with the weirdest, goofiest grin on his face. His straight, jet-black hair flopped onto his forehead. "Hello, future wife," he said, his voice bubbling with glee. "I can't wait to get started on the rest of our lives." Dimple stared at him for the longest minute. The only words her brain was capable of producing was, "What? What?" Dimple didn't know what to think. Serial killer, loony bin escapee, nothing made sense. So she did the only thing she could think to do in that moment. She flung her iced coffee at him and ran the other way. I love that part.
I love that part, too.
And it just gets better from there. This is a great, beach read. And I think
Absolutely.
The author is a debut author.
Yeah,
so
debut book.
Her first book.
Yeah.
And she has another one already in the works.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So you guys have asked for more books, so make sure to download today's handout from the resource folder, hint, hint, now is a good time, where you'll find 2 related books for each of today's featured titles. That's 36 books in 30 minutes.
Yay!
Yay! Be sure to download the certificate of attendance as well in the certificate folder if you need it for credit.
And be sure you join us next time on June 13th when Kiera Parrott, reviews director and a former children's librarian, returns to the JLG webcast series for Books We Love. We're wrapping up the spring 2017 season, so it's your last chance to hear about the best of the best for spring. We'll take a brief summer break and return with fall releases in August.
In addition to telling you about great books, remember we are always creating resources to help you use these books. You'll find resources for today and other selections in our JLG Binders to Go Spring 2017 Live Binder. Remember to look on the book detail pages for a link to the Live Binder resources, so you'll find everything you need on our JLG website.
And speaking of our website, you can check it out after the webcast for the recap blog post. You'll find a list of all the books, including 2 related titles for each of today's 12 books. Don't miss these links to their book detail pages and other resources. Thanks again to our co-host Kayleigh Hanlon for spending some time with us, and thanks to you, our listeners, for supporting these authors and illustrators with your time. Be sure to ask your account rep about all of our books and categories, and you can contact our sales department for more information. Also, please stick around for a very short survey, and tomorrow you'll receive an email regarding today's webinar. If you follow the link, you can watch the archived webinar and print your certificate of attendance after 10 minutes of viewing. So until next time, thanks again for joining us, and happy reading.